Hi there and welcome to Penguin Learning. In this National 4 Maths video, we are going to be having a look at an introduction to fractions. After this lesson, you will know what is a fraction and how they can be used to represent a segment or a part of an object. And you will also know what the two numbers that make up a fraction are and what they represent and when we go to solve problems. And then finally, you will know how to calculate a fraction of a number using the principles that allow us to calculate a segment of a given quantity. So, let's get started.
Ooh la la!
So, when we talk about fractions, we are talking about taking a portion or a segment of a whole quantity. So let's imagine this circle represents the shape of a pizza, and let's say for example we wanted to cut this up. So we have 4 slices, and let's assume that each 4 of these slices are equal in size. And let's say I wanted to take this part of the pizza here. Well, that means I could say I've took a fraction of the whole thing. And by using fractions in mathematics, we can represent how big or how small a fraction can be. So let's say for example we wanted to represent this slice or this segment of the pizza as a fraction of the entire pizza. Well, what we can say is it's 1 out of a possible 1, 2, 3, 4 slices that we've selected. So we could say that to write this as a fraction, this slice of pizza would be 1/4 or 1/4 of the pizza. But let's say now we add another slice to what we've selected. Well, then this would mean that we have 2 slices out of a possible 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would mean that this represented as a fraction would be equal to 2/4 or 2/4. But when we deal with fractions, we always look to simplify things as much as possible. And we do this by using equivalent fractions. And typically we want equivalent fractions in the smallest form possible just to keep things simple. And the way that we can do that is we have to think of a number that can go into both the top and the bottom number, a number that can be divided by the top and the bottom. And of course 2/4 is just equal to 1/2 or a half, because 2 goes into 2 once and 2 goes into 4 twice. So that's how we can put equivalent fractions in its simplest form, by dividing the top number and the bottom number by a common factor, and in this case it was 2. And of course this makes sense that 2/4 is equal to 1/2, because if you look at this we can clearly see that equals half of the pizza. Now instead of just thinking about fractions as a quarter or a half of a thing such as a pizza, we are going to be finding fractions of numbers such as this example here, where we're being asked to figure out what 3/5 of 20 are. Now obviously we can't divide up a number like 20 the same way we did with a pizza, where we could draw on it like a diagram, but the principles remain exactly the same for how we can calculate a fraction like this. So because the questions asked us to calculate something that's in fifths, so in this case it's 3/5, we can imagine it as if 20 is the whole quantity and we want to divide this number into fifths, or just divide the number by 5. And if we do 20 divided by 5, that's going to give us an answer of 4. So that means that each one of these fifths is equal to 4. So in other words, 1/5 of 20 is equal to 4, because 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 is equal to 20. So this here is equivalent to 1/5, this is 1/5, and so on. And the question has asked us to calculate what 3/5 of 20 are, so let's just highlight that just now. So here's 1/5, here's 2/5, and here is the 3/5. And basically all we have to do now is to calculate what 3/5 are, is to add the quantities inside these boxes. So we know 4 plus 4 plus 4 is going to give us an answer of 12. So that means that 3/5 of 20 is equal to 12. To show this in a more mathematical form, all it's really like saying is, well, first of all what we did was 20 divided by 5, which is equal to 4. So we divided 20 by the bottom number, and then now what we have to do is multiply that answer by the top number. So that would mean that 4 multiplied by 3 is equal to 12. And it didn't have to be in that order specifically. We could have started by multiplying it by the top number and then dividing by the bottom number, just like this. So we have 3 multiplied by 20 gives us an answer of 60. And then if we do 60 divided by 5, that also gives us an answer of 12. But in my personal opinion, it's a lot easier to begin by dividing by the bottom number because we're dealing with smaller numbers in that case. So if we begin dividing 20 by the 5 and then multiplying it by the 3, it's a lot simpler to do this sort of calculation without a calculator. But nevertheless, we always end up with the same answer, and in this case the answer was 12. So now let's have a look at this question. We're asked to figure out what is 5/6 of 186. So in other words, if we divide 186 into 6 components and we add up 5 of the components, what is the answer? So to begin, I'm going to just divide 186 by the 6 we have on the bottom here. So we have 186 divided by 6, and let's draw this out as a sum. So we have the 6 divided by the 186. So 6 doesn't go into 1, so we can carry the 1 over and say, does 6 go into 18? Yep, because 6 times 3 is 18. And then does 6 go into the 6 at the end? Yep, it goes in once. So that means that 186 divided by 6 gives us an answer of 31. So we can say that 186 divided by 6 is 31, or in other words, 1/6 of 186 is equal to 31. Both of them mean the exact same thing. So if 1/6 is equal to 31, how do we calculate what 5/6 are? Well, simply all we can just do is multiply the 31 by 5, and then doing that as a sum we have 5 times 1 is 5, and then 3 times 5 is 15. So that means that our answer for this question for 5/6 of 186 is equal to 155. So again, the same as the last one, all we are doing is dividing by the bottom number and then multiplying by the top number, because the top number on the fraction represents the multiplication and the bottom number represents the division. Now, just talking about this example, I want to have a look at equivalent fractions, or fractions that are equal to 5/6 but not in the simplest form, so ones that can be simplified to 5/6. And examples of this would be 10/12, because this is just 5 times 2 gives us the 10, and 6 times 2 gives us the 12. So basically the 10/12 can be simplified to give 5/6, but both of them are equal. We could also say 15/18 is equal to both of these as well, because 5 times 3 gives us the 15 and 6 times 3 gives us the 18. So basically when we're doing this sort of sum, either multiplying or dividing to get that other fraction, we have to do to the top what we also do to the bottom. So if we're multiplying by 2 on the top, we do the same on the bottom, or if we're multiplying by 3, we do the same on the bottom. But more commonly when we're dealing with fractions, we want to work back the way. So say we start with this fraction here and we want to have it in its simplest form, we have to think of what number can go into the top and the bottom. And for the case of 15 and 18, 3 can go into the top and the bottom. So we can say that 3 goes into 15 5 times, and 3 goes into 18 6 times. So 5/6 are these two fractions in the simplest form, but all three of them are equivalent to one another. So here's another example of equivalent fractions. Let's say we have a fraction of 6/24 and we want to put this in its simplest form. Well, basically we have to think of a number that can go into the top and the bottom number. So using our knowledge from times tables, we know that 6 obviously goes into 6, and we know that 6 can also go into 24, so 6 is a number that can go both into the top and the bottom numbers of the fraction. So now that we've found this number, our next job is to simplify the fraction, and the way to do that is divide the top and the bottom number by this common number that we have here. So basically 6 divided by 6 gives us an answer of 1, and what is 24 divided by 6? Well, 6 times 4 gives us 24, so that means 24 divided by 6 gives us 4, so that our answer in its simplest form is equal to 1/4, or 1/4. So let's try one final example, and here we're asked to calculate what 3/5 of 125 are. Now give this a go yourself, pause the video, and then you can follow along afterwards to see if you got the correct answer. So the first thing that I always do is divide whatever number, so 125, by the bottom number, so 125 divided by 5, and then if we do this as a little sum, we can say, well, 5 goes into 12 twice, and we can carry the 2 over because 5 times 2 is 10, then there's remainder 2 for the 12, and that means that 5 goes into 25 5 times, so that means that 125 divided by 5 is equal to 25. So that means that if 1/5 is equal to 25, then 3/5 is just going to be equal to that 25 multiplied by 3, and if we do that, that just simply gives us an answer of 75. So again, one last time, all we did was divide the 125 by the bottom number, and then we multiplied by the top number. And again, I said it doesn't really matter which order we could do. We could start by multiplying the 3 by the 125 and then dividing by the 5, but typically it's just a lot easier to divide by the bottom number first and then the top, but it's always divide by the bottom times by the top. So let's recap this quick lesson we had on fractions. So we said that a fraction can be used to represent a segment or a part of a whole object, such as having a slice of a whole pizza. And the way that we represent fractions in maths is by having some top number over a bottom number, or it's like saying the top number divided by the bottom number. And the bottom number represents how many parts of something that we have, and the top number represents the portion or the fraction. So let's say, for example, we have a pizza and it's divided into 2 slices, and us, we only take half of that, or 1 slice, so that means that the fraction is equal to 1/2 or a half. And we said that in order to calculate a fraction of a number, the first thing that we do is divide the number by the bottom part of the fraction and then multiply by the top part of the fraction. So we would do 20 divided by 4 and then times that number by the top part of the fraction. So I hope this video on an introduction to fractions has been helpful, and if that's been the case, please give the video a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe to our channel, and you can head over to our website at penguin-learning.com. And if you have any questions on this or what we'd like to see in the future videos, give us a comment down below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.